Hi everyone and welcome back. In this video I will go through how ground attack really work. I know that close air support missions can be quite tricky to understand, and especially ground attack. So I will do my best in this video to go through how damage is calculated, how many planes can enter a battle, how they prioritize which battle to fly into and engage in, and how anti-air can affect you in those battles. And then at the end, I will also give some tricks on how you can see how much damage you've done in total over a period of time. So I hope you enjoy it. But before diving into it, some quick info. If you want more guides from us, we do release a new guide every Monday, so subscribe to the channel and you will get those in your feeds. And if you become a Patreon, you will get a bonus guide every second week. On Monday, Boppus will make a guide on tactics and how it works in battles, so please check that out next week. And for all of you that are patrons, we just released a guide on 3 things you didn't know about anti-air, which I think, to be honest, is dramatically underestimated in this game. So please check that out. Alright, let's start. Alright, so ground attack is the direct damage a plane on CAS mission does to the organization and strength of an enemy division in a battle where those planes are active. So if we click on this battle here now, we can see that we have 100 planes on close air support mission, and they do damage directly to the organization and strength of the enemy divisions in that fight. So ground attack can also sometimes be confused with air support or ground support, but also air superiority. But those are different values which CAS and tactical bombers also affect. But in this video now we will only look at the ground attack value and how that works. So that's always the thing you see here in the top bar. Alright, so how is damage calculated? And it's quite tricky, so I'm gonna go through it step by step. Well, the first thing that you have to know is that planes on CAS missions attack every 8 hours. So that's when you see the actual damage being done. So it ticks every 8 hours. So the longer the fight, the more damage you do, basically. And then the second thing is that CAS it completely ignores defense, hardness, and armor. So what you do is that you take the ground attack value on your airplanes, and then you add any modifiers like advisors, spirits of the Air Force, doctrine, and so on. And then multiply that with the number of planes you actually have in that battle. So the ground attack times modifiers times the number of planes you actually have in the battle. And then you take that number you have and multiply that with 3 different numbers that basically represents hit chance and scale. And then lastly, a dice roll, one for organization and one for strength. And then you have the number that your planes actually do every 8 hours. So I'm going to take an example now and see if it makes sense. But basically, you start by looking at your airplanes, and we can take the medium airframe here. So these planes, tactical bombers, they have 12 plus modifiers, so 12.6 in ground attack. And now I don't have any doctrines or anything else, so that's my base value that I have, the 12.6. And then I take that times 100 planes that are actually engaged in this battle. And then I take that multiplied by 0.032, and then times 0.4 times 0.1 to represent scalability and hit chance. And then lastly, the average in strength, dice roll in strength is 1.5, and the average in dice roll for organization is 2.5. So for 100 planes, I would every 8 hours roughly do 2.41 in strength damage and 4 in organizational damage to all enemy divisions in average. So so you see here, for example, right now, I've done, if I unpause, you see each tick, it goes up exactly, or roughly in average, those 2.4 in strength and the 4 in organizational damage. So how does this help you? Well, basically, if you would have twice as much in ground attack, if I would have a better plane that had 25 in ground attack, for example, then I would roughly do 8 in organizational damage every tick, and I would do roughly 5 in strength damage every tick. So that's how you calculate it. And I will post the formula here somewhere in the screen. Alright, so how many planes can enter a fight and how many does actually enter a fight and how does it prioritize? So first of all, how many planes can enter a fight is represented by the enemy division width in that fight times 3 plus minus the terrain modifiers. So in this case I have planes which doesn't affect this number at all. So it's basically the 72 in combat width times 3, which is 216 that you see here in the bottom. So that's the number of planes that can enter a fight. How many of my planes that actually does enter a fight is depending on the mission efficiency of my planes, where range is a huge impact on this. So right now I have 100 planes on close air support mission, which have 100% efficiency, which means that 100 goes into the fight. And I have these tacticals bombers. But if I swap to CAS here, we can see that the mission efficiency drops quite dramatically to 81.9, which means that 82 of my planes only goes into that fight. So so range is a really big factor when you put planes on CAS mission and how close they are to that fight. Alright, so how does planes prioritize which fights to go into? Because right now we only had one fight and they all went into that fight that could go into that fight. So what we will do now is basically that we will take 2 fights at the same time, going up here, unpause, and then we will just wait a little bit so they actually fight, so we see some outcome. Alright, so the planes are flying from this airbase here into this fight. They will always prioritize the battle closest to the airbase. So as you can see here, this fight here, they've done 10 and 6 in damage, and the other fight away, they've done 0 and 0 right now. So prioritizing the closest battle. If the battle further away would have been much bigger than the fight closest, they would prioritize the bigger fight over than proximity to the airbase. However, the proximity is still a stronger value, so the fight would have to be really big in order to pull away a lot of CAS to the other fight. So, and you can test this and see how powerful it is. But proximity to the airbase is the strongest factor, and but size in the battle does make a big difference as well into this. Alright, so reduction of damage from close air support. So basically, with anti-air and some generals, you can achieve up to reduction of 75% of the damage you do with airplanes on close air support mission, which is a lot, to be honest. And in order to, if you just use anti-air, for example, which is the most common way, if you have an average air attack on your divisions in a fight, and that's including all the divisions in reserves in that fight, you have to have an average over 10.7 in air attack. If you have that, you get the maximum of 75% damage reduction. So I'm gonna do a quick test here, and now I'm gonna attack a fight that has some 2 divisions here with anti-air in them. And I think the average in total here will be exactly enough to get over 75%. I'm gonna fast forward a little bit in that fight, and then I'm pausing. So if I hover up here now, you see that I've done 8 damage to organization and 5 damage to strength. But if you look a little bit down, you can see that the enemy divisions anti-air has managed to shoot down 0 planes, but prevented 18 damage to organization and 11 to strength. So in this example, the anti-air didn't exactly go up in the average to the 75%, but they reached roughly 68-69% in damage reduction, which is still very, very powerful. Alright, so the last thing I'm going to show you is basically how you can check how much damage you've done over time to the enemy divisions. And the first thing you have to acknowledge is what strength actually represents. So in this case, you see that the enemy strength, which is 1 division, is 225 that they have left. And if I destroy all that strength of the enemy, then that enemy is annihilated because I destroyed all the equipment that that unit is using. Because the organization represents one thing, but the strength represents all the equipment and manpower that that division actually has. So if I just do 225 damage to this division, that division will be annihilated. If I then look on the air zone, Western Poland, I click on details, I get this graph or this data up here. If I click on enemy troops bomb, then this is actually the strength damage that I've done over time in this zone. So if I look on years, I can see that I've done 854 strength damage over time, which basically represents that I've, during my testing here today, I've destroyed almost 4 divisions worth of equipment while I've done my testing. So what you can do then, if you have, for example, a fight on the Eastern Front, then basically you can look in a given air zone and then see how many enemy troops that are bombed. And you know exactly how much actual damage your CAS or tactical bombers have done towards the enemy's strength in that zone. And then you just think that 200 roughly represents a full division worth of equipment, and you're set. Alright, that was everything that I was going to show today. I hope you guys really liked it. Before running off, a quick shout out to all our patrons. You guys really rock, and thank you so much for supporting us. You are the ones making this really worthwhile. So thank you. Yeah, see you next week.